So I went and signed up for Oracle Cloud.
Oh, look out. Well, now you can do a cross-connect to it, mate.
Well, I want to find out what this is all about.
Oh, yes.
They sent me a badge.
Oh, okay.
They sent me a badge saying that I'm a founding member.
Really? A founding member of Oracle Cloud?
Well, because there's no one else on there. Welcome to GCP Life, episode number 45 for the 28th of July, 2023. GCP Life is sponsored by Kasna. At Kasna, we make your Google Cloud solutions possible. And I'm your host, Stephen Bancroft. On today's show, Google Cloud actually makes some money. We take a look at the HWL Ebsworth breach, and we've got some new GCP features. But before we get to any of that, I'd like to introduce the co-host of the show, Ian Brown. How you going, Ian?
I'm good, mate. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. Nice quick intro, that one.
Yeah.
What's been happening in the fortnight for you? Because, it's like 13 days because we recorded on Saturday last time.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a short time, but look, a lot of cleaning, an awful lot of cleaning. I've still got red dirt in places that you sort of open up the gear bags that we had, and there's red dirt inside them, and I'm like, they've been washed twice.
Yeah, right.
And
it'll take years to get it all out.
It's everywhere. It's all underneath the car still. I just can't get it off under the car. I've had to take the camper trailer down to the manufacturer for repairs. Yep. Which they're doing at the moment. We hope to get it back in a couple of weeks so we can go camping.
Nice.
But yeah, it's been a busy week. I'm sort of doing some pre-sale stuff at work here, and yeah, been hectic. Yeah.
Well, the status on my car is it's back in Sydney. It's at the engine rebuilder place in the western suburbs of Sydney. And I've got a contract all agreed on. Deposits are paid, and it's happening. It's all happening.
Nice.
So they've told me once they've acquired an engine, assuming there are no problems, it'll be 5 to 6 weeks for the installation and testing and tuning.
Yeah, right.
So maybe end of August, perhaps start of September, I'll have effectively brand new engine, and purring like a kitten, I hope.
Nice. And you can make some choo-choo noises.
I can make some choo-choo noises, that's right. And maybe some spinny noises on the ground as well, but we'll see.
250 horsepower at the wheels, that's a fair amount.
And the 800 Newton meters will do it.
Yep.
But we'll have some fun. I can't wait to go and have a drive in it. But I'll keep you updated with that. But I've in the meantime, I got myself a Pixel watch.
Yes, I know. I remember you saying that while we're in. I can't remember where we were. We might have been at Atherton or Winton or somewhere like that. Yeah.
So the way it worked out is I was rocking the Fitbit before. That's the old Fitbit there. I'm probably going to give that to my son. But I've got the Pixel watch here, and I think retail 800-ish or something, 700, 800. I honestly couldn't tell you because my wife bought it for me. But
yeah, right.
the way it came about for us was she wanted a new phone, so she bought for a business. So she bought herself a Pixel 7a. They give you a credit. They give you a voucher, like a $50 voucher to spend at the Google store.
Nice.
This is on the Google store online.
Mm.
And then she said, well, my iPad's a bit old. I said, well, why don't you get a Pixel tablet?
Yeah.
You got the voucher there. So she got the Pixel tablet, which is actually great because that sits, as the Nest in the kitchen, and I can play Spotify and all the rest on it. And then she wants to use a tablet. She just pulls it off and she can use the tablet, right?
Yeah, nice.
But they give you another voucher. So she got a $250 voucher after buying that. And then, of course, the end of year sale came and the Pixel was like another additional $200 or $300 off. And with the voucher, they let us take the discount as well.
Wow.
So I ended up getting the the Pixel Watch for like $130.
Oh, that's awesome.
So couldn't say no, right? Had to get it.
Exactly.
Right? So look, I mean, it's got some nice faces on it. That I don't know if you can see that, but that's like they call that Pilot. That interface.
Oh, right.
I don't mind that.
It looks like an analog watch to me.
Yeah, it just looks like an analog watch, and you can change the face. Right, there's all different ones.
Yeah, cool.
You can answer. It's a smartwatch, so you can answer calls on it. And I've done that a few times. You just answer the call on it, and you can talk on it, and that's fine. It's a little bit quiet, so you've got to hold it up to your ear. You've got navigation. You've got all the apps and everything on it. That's fine. But the battery life, I'm really disappointed with the battery life. Actually,
okay.
You know, the build, before I get onto that, the build is really good. The band's really good, much better than the Fitbit bands. These Fitbit bands are notorious. They break all the time.
Oh, yeah.
The band on this is really quite good. The build quality I'm more than happy with. It's not too heavy on the wrist, right? It looks great. That's all good. The battery life sucks.
Right.
Absolutely sucks. I've gone through and tried to turn off as much features as I can. They say the Google, the Hey Google, be careful. I think I just triggered my phone. Stop. Cancel. That feature, they say does suck the battery life. So I've turned that off.
Okay.
I've turned off the tilt to display because that triggers the face to come on and all the rest of it. Still, if I have it running all day and then I come back to my desk and sit down, it's down to about 40% battery after 24 hours. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's terrible. And I'm used to this Fitbit where it will run for nearly 2 weeks on a single charge.
Yeah, I tend to get, because I've got a Fitbit as well, I tend to get about 2 weeks out of a Fitbit charge. And I generally just charge it in the car. I'm taking my son to school, and by the time I get back, it's done.
Yeah, now it's not like a phone, right? Like a phone, I just stick it on charge overnight and you don't think about it. Like if you want to get this is collecting my biometrics. So if I want to get the sleep data, I've got to have it on while I'm asleep. I can't have it on charge.
Yeah, that's
right. Anytime I've got it on the charger, and they give you this induction charger, right? That's it there.
Oh, okay. That looks suspiciously like the Apple one.
Yeah, it just goes underneath. Whenever you've got it off your wrist, you're not getting any biometrics. It's not collecting your steps or any rest of it like that. And it takes quite a while to charge to get it.
Okay.
And what I've read online is get it to 100% and then keep it on charge for another half hour. So what ends up happening, because I'm distracted and I'm doing other things, it just sits on charge for like 4 hours of the day and you're missing out on all that data.
Yeah, right.
That like as a fitness tracker, having to be on charge that long almost makes it unusable as a fitness tracker.
Yeah,
it really does. It's just not practical. That is by far my biggest gripe with it. The other thing that was annoying me was the touch to wake. So you would just tap it and it would wake up, which in itself is fine. But you know, it's a waterproof device, and you have it on when you're in the shower. When the water drops in the shower would hit it, would turn it on.
Oh, and so it's not capacitive like tap. It's not actually feeling your finger like the capacitance there. It's actually seeing like a vibration or something.
I don't know, but the water in the shower would wake it up, would turn it on.
Right.
Whatever. And then it would go into menus and it would click around and turn things. Why is it doing this?
Oh, my old Apple Watch used to do that a little bit when I was in the pool more than anything.
Right. But something to do with the water, the inductance on the capacitance.
Yeah, well, I've got a saltwater pool, so it's like highly conductive.
Right. So I've turned off the tap to wake feature, and that seems to have improved it.
Okay.
I've also turned off the tilt to wake feature because they say that can save battery life, but it does mean now I have to tap the crown to turn the watch on. And the other thing that was irritating me, and still does to a certain degree, is I've set on my Pixel quiet time. So, you know, between 10 to 7, it automatically goes into Do Not Disturb. So you haven't got Facebook and everything pinging you constantly while you're trying to sleep. While the phone's right next to your head. Right. No, the Pixel Watch completely ignores that.
Oh, okay. So it doesn't follow.
No. So you'd be asleep and it'd be pinging you and vibrating on your wrist and going off, even though the phone's on silent.
I wonder if that's just an evolution of this is the first generation of Pixel Watch that's come out and they're not quite on top of it yet.
Yeah, but I would have thought it would inherit the settings from the phone. I mean, come on.
You'd
How
hope
hard
so.
is that?
Because I remember when I was on the Apple ecosystem, I had the Apple phone and the Apple Watch, and every time I put the phone into flight mode, the watch would automatically go into flight mode, and the inverse of that was not correct, because when you took the phone out of flight mode, the watch already had Bluetooth turned off, so it had no idea. But
you couldn't do it.
Yeah. But same with like I think they call it, it's like quiet time mode or bedtime mode or something like that.
Yeah.
That happened with the watch as well. So if the phone wasn't alerting you, the watch wouldn't either.
Yeah, that's right. So I've since discovered the bedtime mode. Right now, here's the other thing. To get to bedtime mode, you've got to flick down. You got to flick down and then press the button on the left. Right. Now, I know that because I've done it so many times, but it doesn't do it. I've not found a way to do it automatically, right? And my 50-year-old eyes cannot see the button. When I'm going to bed, I don't have my glasses on, right? And I only know it's there purely through muscle memory.
Right? Yeah, right.
So there needs to be a way to quickly activate the bedtime mode,
well,
right? Or have it on a schedule.
It should just follow the phone. If the phone's in bedtime mode, the watch should be too, because theoretically, the phone's right by your head as well.
That's right.
And if I don't want the phone pinging me, I certainly don't want the watch pinging me.
Does the Pixel? Okay, the Pixel does have bedtime mode, right? Okay, so my previous phone did not have bedtime mode, and this is new to me on the phone. So okay, thanks for pointing that to me. I'm going to have to go and have a look at that and see if that will sync to the watch, because that will solve everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that will be a big solve.
Let's hope it does, because that seems like a massive oversight if it doesn't.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Good. I'm glad to talk to you about these things, Ian, because
I'm a wealth of knowledge, mate. Just ask me.
A wealth of knowledge. So that might be insurmountable, but the battery life is not. The battery life is terrible.
Yeah.
So I if you're used to long battery life on a watch, I'd keep away from the Pixel Watch for the moment.
Well, the Apple Watch is exactly the same. They generally last a day and a bit.
Yeah. Anyway, that's my little mini review of the Pixel Watch. What's Melon Husk been up to?
So, as it turns out, he's decided he's going to redo the logo of Twitter. The bird is dead. It is now X. It's just I just quickly when you put X in the run sheet, I quickly looked it up and I was just like, oh no, that's where all because I wasn't really following it. That's where all the dead bird memes have come from in the last couple of days.
Right. That's right. Look, we shouldn't spend any time talking about it, but it can't go without mentioning. Like, it is beyond ludicrous what is going on with Twitter. Beyond ludicrous.
Yeah. Yeah. So the thing here says, and I'm just quoting something that I found on Google when I just searched for Twitter X. Twitter was acquired by X Corp, both to ensure the freedom of speech as an accelerant for X, the everything app.
So I saw a meme. We don't tweet anymore. We do excretions.
I can't condone that.
Let's not waste any more time on this.
No,
Should we get on with the show?
Talk about that anymore.
Let's get on with the show, eh?
Yeah.
All right, let's move on with the community news. All right, we've got one community news item this week, and it's from friend of the show, Rick Elsom. If you're in Perth, Google Developers Group in Perth is doing DevFest. And I'll just read from their little flyer here. Get ready to elevate your business to new heights at the GDG Perth event, proudly supported by the esteemed city of Canning. So this is a city-endorsed GDG event, going to be held at the Hillview Intercultural Centre. And just reading through the program here, they've got it starts at 5 o'clock in the evening, I'd imagine. Some networking, opening remarks, a keynote session, a global cafe. Okay,
It sounds
networking
interesting.
there, and then closes at 8 o'clock. Rick Elsom is going to be there as one of the Mantle Group Casna experts, and got a host of speakers there. Looks like it's going to be a fun event.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Looks like a cracking little event. Oh, good on him. And I'm glad to see GDG Perth is going strong. I always like the GDG events. I've got to get back into organising GDG's Brisbane's next event.
Yeah, because you were doing them quite often there, weren't you?
Yeah, but then I went away for 3 weeks.
Yeah, get back into it again.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're in Perth, then make sure you get over to that. Looks like the opening remark will be from the mayor himself.
Wow.
The mayor of the city of Canning. So be some good stuff. All right, then, let's get on with the news items. Quick little news item here to kick things off. Bit of a success story. Australia Post uses vision for site safety. And I believe Casna had a little bit to do with this, right?
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, we've been working with Australia Post for some time now. But I love this. It's sort of a great little success story here in that they've got cameras in their parcels or delivery network facilities, they call them. And what they're doing is feeding that into Google's vision, machine learning and computer vision technology, and detecting when people are putting themselves in danger within the workplace or going into an area that could put them in danger. So they can catch that before it happens or as it's happening, and potentially the idea here is to save people's lives, limbs, and stop people from getting injured in the workplace.
Yeah, to take a quote from the article here, these cameras are now able to detect if any team member moves into an unsafe zone, alerting the management of team breaches so we can keep our team safe. That's cool.
It is. It's really cool. I suppose the caveat to that is I hope it doesn't end up getting used as a monitoring device for employees, because look, it can.
Yeah, an oversight or like a micromanagement tool, that'd be horrible.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah. I saw a similar thing using AR technology, and the specific example I saw is you might have like a digger or backhoe or something, and a virtual playfield is installed on that, and it can only move so far so that it can't hit power lines or other things like, or swing out in front of trains or anything like that.
Yeah, cool.
So it stays within the guardrails.
Very nice.
Yeah.
I used to work quite a bit on drill rigs and as offsiders for excavators back in my construction days, and we did a offsiding for a drill rig on the railway lines, filling in an old coal mine, and I can tell you now how scary that is when you've got the drill rig, which is quite a big device, and it's the main boom that's on it sits up between the power lines on the railway line, and you're just sort of sitting there going, you've only got to move a foot in either direction, and you start arcing out on the power lines.
Yeah. It's a game of millimeters.
It is.
Yeah, that's a lot of power. So yeah, I guess this Vision API is sort of the same sort of thing, but for people, right? Yeah.
No, that's cool.
Yeah, cool. All right, let's move on and look at a couple of new Google Cloud features. So Ian, you brought this to my attention. Cloud Deploy gets deploy parameters, new console creation flows, and reduced pricing.
I did. So announced not that long ago. It was only a couple of days ago I saw this article. And Google has implemented deploy parameters, which are just key value pairs that are applied in Cloud Deploy at the sort of the last mile of that deployment. So it sort of gives us the capability, much like if any of the listeners have used Octopus Deploy, they've got their substitutions or variable substitutions there. This gives you that exact same capability there, where you can substitute one parameter for another. And they've also reduced the price. So Cloud Deploy's no-charge usage now includes all single-target delivery pipelines. And they've also reduced the price for multi-target delivery pipelines. So it's a cool new little feature. I haven't had a chance to play with it just yet, but it looks really promising, and it gives us the ability to deploy to a whole heap of different targets and do it quite cleanly straight after you've done a build. I think the aim here is that Cloud Deploy is a tool used after Cloud Build to deploy to specific technologies. So you can use it to do GKE deployments, for instance. That would be my primary use case. So one of the examples they give you in this is that you can specify multiple different environments, and if you're deploying to a specific environment, you can set the number of replicas for the deployment. So you can say,
I see.
You can say like, okay, I've got this JavaScript front end here, and in dev, I only want it to have one replica. Versus in production, I actually want it to have 3 replicas or 10 replicas or something like that. And they're your deploy parameters. So you can just update the manifest before it's deployed in that last mile, just before it's deployed, and substitute in the number of replicas you need.
In your Kubernetes cluster.
That's right. Yeah.
Yep.
I suppose another good use case there would be if you do have, if you are using Kubernetes or Cloud Run or anything like that you're deploying to. Another really cool use case, which I've seen a lot, is your file uploads. They've got to go somewhere. You can't store them on a container because the container is not persistent. So you'd have a cloud storage bucket, for instance. Substitute that cloud storage bucket variable in your deployment so that each deployment, when you're deploying dev or prod or whatnot, it has those buckets automatically set upon deployment, as opposed to having some script say, if environment equals development, do this bucket.
I see. Right. That makes sense. Yeah. I'm just reading here at the end of the article here. Google Cloud Deploys adds Canary and parallel deployment support. With support for Canary and parallel deployment, Google Cloud Deploy provides enhanced deployment capabilities to GKE, Cloud Run, and Anthos.
Yes, Anthos is a big one.
Yeah.
We seem to be doing more and more Anthos, and it's something I've never touched.
Yep. Well, I've got a plan for that, Ian. Don't you worry. I've got a plan for that.
That scares me.
All right, then let's move on. Let's have a quick look at the next new feature. Once again, Ian, you brought this to my attention. Configure cleanup policies. Cleanup policies are useful if you store many versions of your artifacts, but only need to keep specific versions that you release to production. You can define delete policies with criteria for deleting artifacts and keep policies with criteria for retaining artifacts.
Yeah. So this is Artifact Registry. This is a pre-GA offering, so it's not fully SLA covered yet. But a really common problem that you've got with Artifact Registry is, and same with the old Container Registry, was that you would be building, and I know previous businesses that I've worked in, you'd be building at least 5 or 6 or 7 images a day from different branches that are going into the repo, and you don't want to keep all of that because
you just end up with all this clutter.
It's massive amounts of data that you're storing. So these policies allow you to remove artifacts that you don't need anymore, which is cool because that reduces the cost to you and it helps to keep your repository nice and clean. There's some limits, obviously. Again, pre-GA, so it's not covered by SLA at this point. Will be in the future, I'm sure. You can only do 300,000 deletions per repository per day, just in case you were deciding to do 1 million. And you can only apply a maximum of 10 cleanup policies to a repository. And lastly, it supports all repository repository formats except apt and yum repositories.
Right.
So obviously, Artifact Registry allows you to do all sorts of different repos, from app or Linux repo type things to container repositories and all the rest. Apt and yum, so Linux repos are not supported at this point.
Yeah. It looks pretty simple to do. You just define your policy with a YAML file. They've got some example formats of that here. Give it a name, action, and then some conditions, and then that'll set the policy.
That's it.
And is it? I suppose you can set in the conditions how often it's going to run, or it'll just run continuously, and you just set a newer then and an older then. I see. Right.
It's just
Yep.
It's just a constant
match
thing.
that. Yep. And you can do a dry run test as well. Always handy.
Yes.
In case you, we don't want to blow away the entire repository.
Could you imagine that? Oh yeah, just accidentally destroyed to the repository, but it's okay.
It's okay. We can rebuild it. And there you go. All right, I'll put a link for that in the show notes. Looks like a really cool tool.
Yeah.
All right then. After seeing those few new features, let's have a little dive into here and see how well Google Cloud's going financially, because I hear that we've had some revenue growth.
There has been a lot of revenue growth. It's quite fantastic to see how well Google Cloud is doing of late.
So, article from GeekWire that I'll link in the show notes. Google Cloud posts second straight profitable quarter on 28% revenue growth. Google Cloud boosted its operating profits to $395 million for the second quarter, an improvement of close to $1 billion from its loss of $590 million. So they've gone to an improvement of $1 billion after its loss of $590 in the same quarter a year ago in 12 months.
Yeah, that's fantastic, isn't it?
Oh, it's starting to turn a profit. Yeah,
and I have to do it. I have to quote our co-host: "More billions is better."
More billions is better.
Dave Wall, I'm thinking of you.
Yeah. Shout out to Dave. Hope you're going well. Google Cloud revenue rose 28% to more than $8 billion in the second quarter. Just going from strength to strength.
Yeah, they are. And Alphabet's overall revenue rose too, 7% to $74.6 billion, with a net income of $18.4 billion, which is phenomenal. Like this year, Google Cloud's been running at a loss for some time. And now we're starting to see that turn where they've made up that ground and they're starting to make money again.
Yep. But why? We ask, Ian, why? Well, Pinchai has credited the growth to factors including the use of, guess what? Google Cloud infrastructure by customers for training and developing generative AI models. Of course it came down to AI. Of course.
Yeah, hang on. We need the button, the generative AI button.
AI, generative AI.
Alphabet's overall revenue rose 7%, as we said. Yeah, to they got the numbers here as well: $74.6 billion, with a net income of $18.4 billion and earnings per share of $1.44. Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's topped Wall Street's expectations across the board, which is great.
Always good to hear. You know, I can't help thinking if, you know, a few weeks ago we reported on the cloud wars and who the order of the cloud providers. I think those guys will be having a good hard look at this, and I don't know how often they publish, but you know, I would expect to see a few movements in that Cloud Wars table for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So Microsoft have already posted their cloud results, which I haven't had a look at because it's Microsoft. And AWS, much the same. Haven't had a look. They are set to post theirs next week, I think. So might be interested to do a comparison in the next podcast to see how they go.
We might try and grab a comparison of that. Yeah, absolutely. All right, cool. Well, yeah, that's some good news for money, but we've got quite a few security stories to get through this week. There's been quite a bit of movement with a few things that are happening in Australia as well. So we'll take a look at these. APRA, an article on IT News, APRA is tightening the screws a little bit. Australia's banks and insurers have 3 years to renegotiate cloud and IT contracts. Now, this is interesting.
This feels to me, and it doesn't say it in this article that I could see. This feels to me like APRA they've sort of had enough of the data breaches that we're seeing, and they're like, right, enough is enough. It's time for you guys to pick up your game and start acting.
Now, what are they actually asking here? I've got some quotes from the article. Are they asking the financial institutes to completely renegotiate agreements, or they've got to renegotiate with these new terms that APRA are imposing on them?
So there's new terms as part of CPS 230. It says here, contracts with material service providers should be updated as soon as possible, given their importance to critical operations and operational risk. And a key feature of CPS 230 is that it sets some standards for how quickly a bank or other entity needs to inform the regulator when it kicks in various incident response mechanisms. So this isn't necessarily specific to data breaches. This is any sort of incident response.
Yeah, and data loss
that's right.
too, they're talking about. So the entity has no more than 72 hours to inform APRA of an incident that is likely. So they don't even need to necessarily definitely know, even if it's likely to have financial or operational repercussions. So operational repercussions.
Yeah.
So Cloudflare comes along and causes a massive outage, then they've got to report
That's
it, right? Because we'll get into that in a sec, but they're a provider, right? Operational repercussions, and no more than 24 hours to disclose if business continuity plans have been activated.
Yeah.
So if you're going to go into a failover, you've got 24 hours.
That's right.
You've got to inform APRA.
Yeah, and then the other one that I found there is APRA must also be notified prior to any offshoring agreement or a change to one, and then after an offshoring agreement is entered into or altered. So they're really, really tightening the screws about third parties that you can use and where that data is stored, and they really want.
And they're not mucking around with. They're not mucking around with this as well, because the article goes on to say, while parts of the industry sought extra time, APRA declined extensions.
Well, I mean, they already delayed it. So APRA had intended to enforce CPS 230 from January 2024, so January next year. It's just like 5 months away. But it's pushed the start date back to July 1st, 2025. So, I mean, they're already getting an extra year and a half to comply with this. I'm not sure how much more time they need to comply with it.
Right. Now, the rub is that under CPS 230, they face extra scrutiny on a number of fronts, from architecture, geographical location of servers and services. Now, we've talked about that on the show before, to the terms of the service agreement. Several providers, including Salesforce and AWS, took issue with requirements for financial institutions to specifically assess geographical locations and service concentration risks, but were unsuccessful in having them excluded. So it sounds like they're going to insist, if you're an Australian financial institution, you've got to have your stuff in Australia.
Yeah, 100%. And so you should do too.
Yeah.
Now, I read another article, and I can't find a link to it anywhere now, that Salesforce was arguing that forcing them to reside inside of Australia would mean that not all of their services are available, and it would be a detriment to the customers and all this sort of stuff. But honestly, Salesforce, you're a big enough company. Put your stuff in Australia, because the data sovereignty laws and the CPS 230 ruling that APRA's got here means that if it isn't in Australia, it can't be used.
Yeah, but I don't know about that particular rule. Like, they're going to enforce it, but I've got my own thoughts on this. I actually don't think it makes a difference where the data is actually housed. Really, it doesn't. Like you can still access it, whether it's in a server in the US or in Australia. Does that really matter? It's the same security that's placed on it.
Yeah, that's
it's all virtualized.
That's the kicker. There is I think this is more along the lines of APRA require under this 230 auditing capability. They want to be able to walk into the data center and audit your equipment. Now, it's interesting that's something that Google already does. So Google already gives a financial services provider or financial services licensee the ability or a representative thereof, the ability to audit their data center.
Yeah, so that's the other thing I was going to point out here. And CPS 230 contains clauses that, among other things, require contracts to allow APRA the right to conduct an on-site visit.
Yep.
And that's a direct quote from CPS 230 to a service provider engaged by a bank or other entity. AWS said that needed to be clarified. And you're right, Google already allows you to do this, right? I'm not surprised that AWS are arcing up about this. Salesforce went further, stating customers may currently contact it to request an on-site audit of Salesforce processing activities in specific circumstances, but no blanket right of access is offered. In other words, you're not really allowed. We're not going to really let you in, but we might let some people in.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? So if you whinge enough.
Yeah,
right?
that's it. And that's it. The squeaky wheel gets the oil.
Yeah. And that would extend to any contractor that an APRA governed entity would use, right? So once again, someone like Cloudflare, right? If they were using that, then they're exposed to this, right? Am I reading this right?
Well, 100%. I did like Microsoft's response too, which is the paragraph underneath it, and it says Microsoft meanwhile noted that IT contracts could be complex, and that wouldn't at all be by their own doing, and have a number of component parts and interrelated services where individual reassessment and renegotiation could be time consuming.
In other words, we're going to muck you around for ages, and you probably will never get in.
We're just going to increase the price, and we're going to make sure the end user license agreement is so complex that you can't understand it. Neither can your lawyers. And that's the pessimistic side of me coming out. But that's that's a fairly common play by Microsoft anyway. Is just to make things complex. It's so hard to interpret what you can and can't do.
More convoluted, yeah. This opens up an interesting can of worms. Like, in my way of thinking, if I was a third-party provider of some SaaS product or whatever, I would have a checkbox on my sign-up and say, "Are you, governed by APRA?" And I have to have a checkbox there, and then you would have all this set out, all these conditions. And maybe deny them access to your service because you just don't want to take it on.
Well, that could happen. And look, it could happen to Salesforce now regardless. Like if Salesforce is saying, look, we're not going to let you, not going to give you the right to conduct an on-site visit, then APRA might turn around and say, well, in that case, then your service can't be used by financial services in Australia. And
that may well.
I mean, you've got to think of that would be millions and millions and millions of dollars a month down the drain. Yep.
Are they going to come to the party?
Of course they will. It's money.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I just can't see this being the only thing. I think there's going to be more regulations come out of this. We've got the Royal Air Marshal in place now.
That's it. The Royal Air Marshal.
I forget his name. You know who I'm talking about. He's going to be pushing for more things like this, no doubt, across other sectors as well.
Yeah, no, that's definitely the case. It's I can only see more regulation coming into financial services, just due to the current disastrous landscape we live in.
Yep. And while we're on it, talking about breaches and and governance. Let's talk a little bit about the HWL Ebsworth breach, because some more information's come out on this, and I still think this is the tip of the iceberg. The Federal Fair Work Ombudsman, of all the people, the Federal Fair Work Ombudsman is the latest Australian government agency to disclose some exposure to the May data breach experienced by law firm HWL Ebsworth.
Well, it's one of two of the latest ones, because the next article that we're covering is another government agency that's caught up in it, which is NDIA, which is the National Disability Insurance Agency. So,
yeah,
it literally is. We saw a number of South Australian government entities. We saw the federal government, Queensland government, a whole heap of government organisations caught up in this, and it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
It's been reported that more than 40 government agencies may have had their dealings with the law firm exposed.
Yeah. And look, I need to congratulate HWL Ebsworth on this, because from all the reports that I've read, they are in direct contact with the affected departments and they're being quite open and very specific on what has been breached or exposed, I should say. And working with them to rectify the situation. So from all reports, that's good. It's not sort of we didn't get breached. Oh yeah, look, we did get breached, which has been the modus operandi of so many organisations in Australia of late.
Let's just say, if someone comes out and says, "Don't worry about it, the breach is not that big a deal,"
it's huge.
It's a big deal.
It's huge. Yeah, it's crazy. So, yeah, because we've got Fair Work now, which is quite ironic, and NDIA. And NDIA, again, this one's probably a little bit more disturbing to me because it affects disability recipients.
Right. Yeah, there could be some health information in there.
Yeah, that's right. So the NDIA has come out and said they're working closely with HWL Ebsworth to ensure those affected are appropriately identified, notified and supported as they confirm what information has been affected.
Yep. Another quote here, the data set is large and unstructured.
Yes.
And includes complex mix of different types of documents and information affecting many different stakeholders. Because you can imagine being a law firm, right? They're just collecting information for their cases and all the rest of it, and it could be anything.
That's right.
It could be anything that they're collecting in there.
That's right. So, look, it just keeps getting bigger. But again, I have to say that of all of the data breaches that we've seen this year alone, this is possibly the one that's being handled the best.
Potentially the most frightening as well.
Well, that's true.
Given the information that could have been exposed.
Yeah, well, certainly for the disability recipients, that this is going to be quite a blow, and possibly for Fair Work as well.
All right, let's move on. Change tact here a little bit with our security items. We've actually got a hardware security problem from AMD. AMD meet Zenbleed, a speculative execution bug hitting AMD processors. And here AMD were on their high horse laughing at Intel from their perch, but no, they've got a speculative execution problem as well. Yeah,
they do. And this one was actually brought forward by a Googler. So Tavis Ormandy, of Google, has let loose a microcode bug in a range of AMD processors, which he says allows attackers to get usernames and passwords while log on to being processed. He found that the variant could leak about 30 kilobits per core per second, which is perfectly acceptable to pull out usernames and passwords real quick. So they can monitor encryption keys and passwords as users log in.
Yeah, and frighteningly, an attacker logged into a cloud machine will be able to exploit Zenbleed to spy on other tenants without special privileges.
Yeah, that's that, and the ability to exploit that on a machine and via a web page, which is the other method of attack, seems to be the scariest parts about this.
Apparently relates to a specific instruction, the Zarupa instruction.
I'm glad you could pronounce that because I couldn't pronounce it. I looked at that. I've been looking at that all day going, how do you pronounce that?
Zarupa, the V is kind of silentish, I guess, can be used to zero the upper 128 bits of the YMM register. If you want to get it, it's been assigned a CVE.
Mm-hmm.
Take another quote from the article. The issue has severe security consequences and is easily exploitable. To illustrate this, we have developed a reliable method of leaking register contents across concurrent processes, hyperthreads, and virtualized guests.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. If you're across threads and you've got a window open in one and you're logging into something in another window, then potentially that malicious website could be reading what you're doing.
And so I look at this from a cloud provider's perspective and saying, okay, if you're using their AMD EPYC processor, which is one of the Zen 2 processors that's affected, you could potentially have 1,000 different machines running on that processor. And if it's so simple to exploit, there's no reason why a malicious attacker couldn't spin up a machine on an AMD processor and start exfiltrating data. And that's quite a risk.
Start slurping data out of all the other cores.
It.
Yeah, not a problem. Yeah.
So the good part about this, I suppose, if there is a good side of this, it only affects Zen 2 based processors, which includes the Rome server class processors. It also affects Ryzen Threadripper Pro 3945s, Ryzen 7 Pro 4750s, the Ryzen 7 5700U, and the EPYC 7B12, which that's a lot of processors. But it is patched.
It is patched. Yeah. I was just trying to see if I could find the microcode patch for it. So microcode patch is available.
Yeah.
Nice.
So surprisingly, and this comes as a huge surprise to me, Citrix led the way with the patch. So it doesn't affect their hypervisor specifically, but obviously their customers are running AMD Zen 2 CPUs, so they were the first ones to release the microcode patch.
Okay, so if you're running an AMD system, make sure you get the latest microcode. I think that should be pulled down with the Windows update if you get it, right?
Yeah, so if you're running a Windows machine, you should get it. If you're running Linux, the Linux firmware update project should deploy it for you. I know mine, I did an update on my machine yesterday, and I got a new firmware that was getting applied during the reboot, so I'm assuming it's done that. I haven't actually checked, to be honest, but because I'm running an AMD.
Yep, nice. Good one to be aware of. All right, let's move on. How about we move on with the AI Wars? A couple of quick ones this week in the AI Wars. The South Australian government trials its own generative AI chatbot.
They have. Look at them getting all on the front foot of this.
Now, they don't say what chat engine they're using, do they?
No, they've made some references to OpenAI and ChatGPT in the article that we're reading from, but they haven't said exactly what they're using.
Yeah, so the South Australian government was able to produce its own version of a generative AI chatbot.
Oh, there you go.
Like ChatGPT. What they trained it on?
I wonder whether they pulled down the Meta AI that's been open sourced and they're using that.
So it's likely that they've just used Vicuna, because you can get Vicuna and you can train it with your own data as well.
Yeah, quite possibly. So I like this. They've said in here in this submission that since the release of ChatGPT in November 22, the South Australian Education has been reviewing ways to support the responsible and effective use of ChatGPT and other related AI-capable technologies. So it seems to me like they're trying to get on the front foot about how to use AI in classrooms and how to control the use of AI in classrooms.
Yeah, that's right, because if they don't do it, the kids are going to go off and use ChatGPT anyway.
I mean, my young fella's already looking at ChatGPT to write his essays, and I prevent it because I'm nice like that.
Because it ain't going away, right? So they got to do something about it, and they got to teach the kids how to use it because this is the new world.
That's right. So they're looking at capability building initiatives to support teachers and students, as well as an observational study to understand how it's being used and the impact it can have on teaching and learning. So, I mean, another article that we're looking at after this is all about the regulation of AI and how Google is actually developing tooling to detect when something has been generated with AI. So I'm assuming schools are going to want to see that and use that technology so that they can detect when someone has not been 100% forthright in their assignments.
That's right. But, you know, the assignment may be use a generative AI tool to do blah. And that's perfectly legitimate, 100%. Right? It's now a form of, it's just another tool that you can use, right?
Whereas the use case that my son wanted to use was he had to write a poem from his English class, and it was all about he had to write an Australian poem from his English class, or for his English class, I should say. And he just came home and he was like, "Dad, how do I get on a ChatGPT?" And I'm like, "Why?" "Oh, because I need to write a poem for my English class." I'm like, "Well, no, because that's not you writing it. That's a GPT writing it."
You know, well, I mean, that's where he went wrong to start with. He shouldn't have asked you. He should have asked Google how to get on the ChatGPT, and then that would have told him, right? So, like, you just let the cat out of the bag.
Well, he did try getting onto Bard, but it wouldn't let him on Bard because he's got a child account.
There you go. So the trial is running over an 8-week time frame in several secondary government schools in South Australia. So it's not primary school, it's the older kids that are using it. And you'd imagine it'd be the seniors as well that'd be putting to it. So yeah, one to watch out for and see how this is adopted across the board, because it's going to be interesting to see how this develops. I guess this is akin to, you know, when the internet first came along. It's like, what do you mean I can just search for something immediately and just find the information I need for my assignment? You don't have to go look in encyclopedias and like aimlessly copy out paragraphs from the encyclopedias.
Remember those days when you used to have Encyclopedia Britannica in your house? What was the other encyclopedia that we had? There was an American version as well. I can't, because Encyclopedia Britannica was obviously the English version.
The British,
and then you had the American.
And then if you were lucky, you had Encarta on a CD-ROM.
Yeah, wow. That brings back some memories. Single-speed CD-ROMs.
Doesn't it? Yeah.
Kids these days don't know how lucky they are.
Don't know. So I guess, it's akin to that, right? It's like now, instead of just searching and finding someone's article, I just ask a chatbot and I find it tells me. Right?
Yeah. It's interesting. I've got so I've actually installed the Opera browser. Just playing with it. I haven't played with Opera for quite some time. They actually have an AI built into the browser. Just a button on the sidebar, along with, like, as you can have on the sidebar of Opera, you can have like your Messenger and your Twitter and your WhatsApp and all those sort of accounts in there. But they've actually got an AI button there as well. And you can just jump in and ask it questions and it'll go off and find the answer for you.
Yeah, right. And it returns the answer in the bar or in the window.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. It's called Aria.
Yeah, right. Really good for people's ADHD when they really want to get distracted from what they're doing and they just have a sudden thought and go and type it in there.
100%.
So you mentioned this other article. We'll just move on. You mentioned this other article. Google is having productivity talks with the EU on AI regulations, Cloud Boss says.
Yeah, so Thomas Kurian's been talking to CNBC, and he said they want to find a path forward with the EU regulations on AI. Obviously, the EU has a number of worries around AI. One of them being the concern it may become harder to distinguish between content that's been generated by humans and that which has been produced by an AI. And that's where that reference.
And Kurian is, that's right. Sorry, I was going to say, Kurian has said they're working on technologies to ensure that people can distinguish between human and AI generated content.
Yeah, and he's also come out and said these technologies have risk, but they also have an enormous capability that generate true value for people. And I agree with that. I agree with both parts of that statement. There is a risk involved with AI because we don't know what it's capable of. It's much the same as when we first brought computers in. We didn't know what computers were capable of. And so now we're looking at a system of having AI regulated to not do stupid things, or what we would consider stupid things, versus still providing the benefits that society wants.
Yep. Goes on to say the company unveiled a watermarking solution that labels AI-generated images at its I/O event last month. So that's great, right? Yeah, watermark all your AI stuff, right? But that's Google doing it. What if I spin up Vincuna, or like a home lab that's got it? I mean, we're getting there. It's going to be powerful enough. I don't need no stinking watermarks on that. I'll just create all the AI content I like.
That's exactly right. There's no reason why you can't spin up Vicuna on a whole heap of NVIDIA GPUs now.
Create your own content.
Yeah, so
right?
I think one of the things here is protecting against copyrighted content. So I've been a massive critic of the music industry previously because they are really, really slow to get on the ball. Certainly with changes, we all remember we were around in the 90s and early 2000s when the
Napster era,
when we all used to have Napster. But what Google are doing here, it's equally important to protect copyright. So we don't want to be putting artists out of work. That's not the goal here. So what he said is, in providing those tools to recognize if the content was generated by a model, they say, and that is equally important as saying copyright is important, because if you can't tell what is generated by a human or what was generated by a model, you won't be able to enforce it.
Right. But just on the copyright thing, we kind of already have a solution for this. There are models around that have been trained on a data set that is copyright free.
That's right.
So Adobe have this, and there's music models around that have been trained on music that is freely available on the web. And then that your artwork piece is free of any copyright all the way through the chain. So, just to finish up on this point, Kurian has come out and said, we have said quite widely that we welcome regulation. We do think these technologies are powerful enough. They need to be regulated in a responsible way. Working with governments in the EU, United Kingdom, and many other countries to ensure they adopted them the right way. So we know Google's doing the right thing, do no evil. We surely hope the other providers of AI technology are doing the right thing, the ethical thing as well. But, I'll say it again, I think there's a big empty space when it comes to the open source side of things. They don't have to be regulated, right?
That's it. Yeah, it's look, I commend Google for doing the right thing here, because it would be easy just to ignore it.
All right, well, we might finish up on that. I think we've had a bumper show this week. We've covered off plenty of subjects, and you even snuck out one and snuck a sneaky one in on me.
I did indeed.
I'll go away and continue to wrestle with this Pixel Watch here and figure out what's going on.
I'm going to go and open up my Champion Innovator box and see what goodies I've been sent this time.
Oh, yes, this sounds great. But go to iTunes and write us a review. That would really help the show out. Don't forget, we have a Twitter there. For the meantime, I've actually got a bit of a plan in mind for what I want to do with that. Interesting, Ian, see the icon there? It's changed to an X for that Twitter link. Yeah, and don't forget the website. You just Google that and you'll find GCP Life. And of course, today's sponsor was Kasna. At Kasna, we make your Google Cloud solutions possible. I think that's about it from me. Anything else from you,
No,
Ian?
mate. I think it's about time to get back into some more GCVE prep.
That's it. Oh, I can't wait to have a good look at that project. It sounds great. All right, guys. We will catch you later.
Bye.
Bye. Google deploys. Cloud Deploy gets deploy parameters, new console creation flows, and reduced pricing. Cloud Deploy. Did you change this?
I did, because it was the SAP one.
You cheeky bugger.
I know. No, I changed it because the SAP one was like, meh, and this one was much more interesting.